Support for the CivicSciTV network comes from listeners and viewers like you and organizations such as the Rita Allen Foundation, which invests in transformative ideas in their earliest stages to leverage their growth and promote breakthrough solutions to significant problems. Go to ritaallen.org to learn more.
Mapping the global landscape of civic science by dissecting new insights from researchers, practitioners, and leaders in academia, government, for-profit, and non-profit organizations. This is Questions of the Day with Fanuel Muindi.
Previously on Questions of the Day.
I'm hoping it becomes much more than just a podcast. I don't want to say just a podcast because it's important. It's done a lot, but I want it to be a movement in neuroscience. I'd love to become the face of neuroscience being done in Latin communities, really. And I'd love for the podcast to be a resource for students, even in the classroom. Like perhaps there's a way to make these episodes maybe even shorter, maybe a spin-off series or something like that, where, you know, it's more fun to learn about neuroscience than flipping through your textbook. You could just, hey, you have this podcast, you go listen to it and then tell us what you liked about it. It'd be great to have a show, a TV show of some sort. I think that's my next 5-year plan.
All right. Welcome back to Questions of the Day. I'm your host, Fanuel Muindi. Now, I have a special guest today with me, Dr. Radhika Patnala. She joined me, now get this, 4 years ago. 4 years ago, we had a conversation in the middle of the pandemic, and she was gracious enough to come in and do a 1-hour-long workshop telling us about her work at the intersection of science and art. But as you can guess, 4 years have gone by and a lot has happened. Radhika, welcome to Questions of the Day. Welcome back, actually.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be back.
Yes. And so with that said, a lot has happened. Last time we were chatting, you were doing Sci-Illustrate as a founder and director, right? And now you are now the founder and CEO of Endosymbiont. Could you just take us back over the past 4 years and give us the highlights, okay, of some of the transitions that have taken place in your work, right, as you've been at this intersection of science and art?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for the last 6 years, so just a little bit more context in that sense. We spoke 4 years back when I was a sole proprietor and I was running Sci-Illustrate, and still exploring how I could make a profession out of science and art and bring everything together. Then, after doing that for a very long time, we eventually incorporated 2 years back, and that was Endosymbiont Gambia. And as the company matured and as I got a bit more clarity on who we serve, what all are we helping our clients with, it was a bit easier for me to then bucket it well. So now at the moment, Sci-Illustrate is responsible for our public outreach projects, our training programs. Sci-Illustrate is and will always be my baby in a way, because my name in which I sign all my art is Radhika Patnala Sci-Illustrate. So that is also the place for all my personal art. And yeah, so that is what Sci-Illustrate does. But eventually, what I needed a space for, which was why I founded Endosymbiont, was to address more corporate communications, which is where the agency started heading towards. So our majority of our clientele were biotech and healthcare companies. And we were doing a lot of corporate communications in terms of, helping them brand their new products, brand their new biotech companies, all the way to helping them with market positioning, brand strategy, and all of this in the point of view of a scientist. And so then we moved on to websites, corporate decks. So I would definitely say that we are definitely more corporate communications company, but we have a very heavy emphasis on visual communications. And we use the power of art and design to better visual science communication.
Yeah. So you mentioned your clientele. So for Endosymbiont, it's corporate companies that are there.
Corporate companies and academics as well.
and scientific academies. Is that right?
So
Okay.
research institutes, yeah,
Mhm.
like basic research as well.
I see. I see. So what would you say are they most when they come to you? What are they trying to do? Can you just walk us through that?
Um, it's it's surprisingly similar all over the spectrum. Everyone is trying to communicate their science better
Mm,
because what is happening around the world, it seems now, is that our science keeps getting more and more complex. Back in the day, we used to work at, say, level 2 complexity. Now we're working at level 10 complexity. And almost always, every field is so hyper niche now that there is a lot of catching up for anyone, even in the field, to do to be able to understand level 10 scientific complexity. And be it our clients in the academic sphere, like so lab leaders trying to make a review article about a very niche topic, all the way to a biotech CEO trying to explain what his company's innovation is or what is differentiating him from his competitors. Everything is working at a level where you just need to have some kind of background knowledge to be able to understand it well. And when any of these come in front of anyone else, even if it's even if it's a biologist but not in the same field, you need to catch up.
mm.
And that is where visuals are the key. So almost everyone is really trying to communicate their science in a clear and concise way. And that is the challenge that we help them solve.
Yeah, and for you, the visual aspect of this is the kind of the bread and butter of what you do, right? And in our last workshop 4 years ago, you took us through, right? You're trying to create this structure, visualizing the structure of the spike proteins, right? Which is really cool to see that live as you were developing this visual. So and then for the Sci-Illustrate, you mentioned it's for the public, right? So tell us about that and how that differs essentially, because isn't the audience for Endosymbiont still the public or?
So the audience for the Endosymbiont is, I would say the client. I mean, the audience is still the public. You are right.
Mhm.
Um, but the projects that we handle in Sci-Illustrate now are are basically passion projects that I started doing 6 years back
I
when
see.
I started the company. So a little bit of context there. So one of the kind of founding ethos of my company or companies was that I want to give myself the space to be able to do something that I'm passionate about that
Mhm.
generates value in the world,
Mhm.
right? And that was very important to me very early on. So one of the first projects that we started was a Women in Science series, where I realized my own ignorance of women scientists in the world, and I wanted to address that. Um, and so I started the Women in Science series, and the it was very simple. The goal was to capture the story, the scientific and personal story of a woman scientist in art and words.
Mhm.
This was it started as a social media campaign and we moved it to a blog. And eventually we were consistent about it. And over the span of 2 years, we made 75 blog articles. So we highlighted 75 women scientists. So this example of a public outreach project that we did,
Mhm.
where we now have the blog. We have highlighted about 30 Indian women scientists that no one knows about. And you see why that's valuable because anytime someone comes into the news, we get top hit. And we have like thousands of people trying to find out more about that person. And this is a place that we've created where they can get good and accurate information which has been curated about a certain women scientist.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that is one example of the passion project with it. Another example is a project that is going on now, which is called the League of Extraordinary Cell Types. And the goal of that project is to catalog all the cells in the human body through, again, art and words. And so I mean, I didn't know when I was starting these projects how much work it is. But again, like we are trying to create value in the world and we're trying to create a place where someone can come and learn about the beauty of cell types. And because there are so many and they're so niche, and some of them we are just learning about now, you get a place where you can appreciate the complexity of biology.
Yeah.
And this project is essentially for the world. It's for scientists, it's for high school students, it's for universities, people. So that is just an example of public outreach projects that we are very well positioned to do because we are scientists and visual communicators.
Yeah. So as someone is listening and I've kept track of you online, someone can wonder like, oh my goodness, you're a serial entrepreneur in this civic science, if we use that term for now, civic science domain, right? You've started a company, like a with a public engagement portion, and you have the corporate side as well. Is this what you envisioned, right, from an early age, thinking, okay, I want to become this serial entrepreneur in civic science? Because you do have a PhD in neuroscience, right? You're on the track to actually do science. Can you give us the, like, what clicked for you? What changed for you along your journey that set you on this path?
Mhm. So I definitely didn't envision this for myself, of course not. Like we all are sold the dream of doing science, or most of us don't even know what occurs at the end of a PhD. Like we just follow. Yeah, I mean, you're a neuroscientist. Like, anyone who studies neuroscience or any life science subject and does a PhD on it knows what I'm talking about. We just follow the curiosity until a point where we then have to think about, okay, now what? Um, so the same thing happened with me. I was following the curiosity because it was so enjoyable for as long as it would allow me, right?
Mm,
And then then it came to a place where I had to do something with all this knowledge that I had and all the skills that I had. And so for me, it was essentially finding a job or creating a job for myself where I was able to use all the skills that I essentially have.
yeah,
And so what I created was a way for me to to do justice to what I have within me, you
mm,
know?
mm, yeah,
So that was kind of I would say like that realization was what then made me switch to doing science communication because it was coming very naturally to me and I had skills to support it.
mhm,
And the fact about doing all these different things, I think on some level it is also to multiply the impact you can have on your community and the people around you. And so I would say that is where the effort lies, like how are you able to use everything you have to multiply the impact that you can create
yeah.
around you.
And of course, we didn't do it justice here. I think so. In our network, we have the Changemakers program where we take a deep dive into people's paths and journeys. So we need to have you back for that in particular. And for those who are watching, that's a whole different program that allows us to talk and engage and ask really the hard questions along the way. So with Endosymbiont, Radhika, what do you hope, like, it for what's the goal for it as you're growing it, because it is still growing, right? You essentially, if I may say, a startup, can I use that word, or you, how would you define it and where do you want it to go?
So I would say that I can't call it a startup because it does have all the experience that we collected
Mhm,
over Sci-Illustrate's time.
mhm,
So in essence, it is already probably like a 7-year-old company,
mhm,
in at least the way it operates and the way it is. Um, where do I want it to go? Uh, so the aim is at the moment for Endosymbiont to uh, to be basically like better known, I would say, because I feel like we seem to be like the industry's best kept secret a little bit. And we have done like really good work over the last how many ever years that we have been, and we have touched a lot of different biotech and life science companies in multiple parts of their journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so the aim for Endosymbiont right now would be to uh, just just increase the impact that we can have, because we have the processes in place, we have systems, and we have processes that allow us to do really good work. Now it's only a matter of getting that work to people.
Yeah. And then the impact again is what? Can you define it for us one more time? For someone who's listening, how would you define that for someone who doesn't know what you're doing? What is the impact that you hope to see?
Oh, so I would say, like, so in my definition, an impact would be when our clients are able to raise more funds,
Okay.
are able to push forward their breakthroughs to the next level. Like, so for example, if a client is coming from is a biotech startup who's looking for seed funding, then they acquire that seed funding and move forward. Or if
Yeah.
it's a client who's looking for like a merger acquisition deal to like help move the product into a clinical phase or something, then it is that transition. So at each of these transitions of the life cycle of a biotech company, we are trying to help them move to the next step. And what I have learned at least is every biotech company has different requirements at every stage. And so we are well positioned to help them with their specific needs at every level.
Yeah. Because it's a full, I mean, you're looking at multiple things, right? It's the visual aspect. You also do science writing. Is that correct as well?
Uh,
I'm sure. So full spectrum. And tell us more about these clients, if from what you're able to share. Where are they mostly from? For example, you are based in Germany. Are they mostly from Germany? Are they from Europe, America, Africa? Tell us.
so uh, the benefits of being a company in this time and age of the internet is that we have clients globally. So apart from the side effect of me not getting enough sleep because I'm on call from probably like 10 a.m. till probably, I don't know, 10 in the night. Um, we have clients spread across the spectrum. So we have clients in Singapore, in Europe, in different
Mhm.
countries of Europe, and in the US. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
it's quite spread out, and our clients come from different sectors of life sciences, the biotech and life science industry. So we have clients in the academics, so in universities.
Mhm.
These are individual labs who need help in like small things like cleaning up their data, like some kind of science consultancy and
For publication, like when it's
exactly
getting up for publication. Okay.
for
Okay.
publications, like how do you best visualize your science? How do you lay out your figures so that it comes through? How do you make your graphs better?
Mm.
So it could be as small as that from the academic side,
Mm.
all the way to biotech companies and all the needs that they might have at every stage of their life cycle. Um, I kid you not, we also made a tombstone for one of our clients who got acquired. So that was, I never knew these things existed, but like during a merger acquisition deal, when a company acquires another company, that is kind of like the end of the other company. So everyone involved in the deal gets a tombstone. So-
So,
and
so it looks like, yeah, I mean, again, you're involved in multiple aspects. Y- Tell us about the team, Radhika. You've been using the royal we. I want to make sure we understand sort of who is the team behind this work.
Mhm. So our team, so we have two core team members. That would be me and my partner, Dr. Anna Fabrizius.
Mhm.
And our team itself is quite agile in the way that we put together the team based on the scope and the size of the project and the specific expertise that project needs. Because we are like a full service company a little bit, and the things we do are like so different from each other. Like one day I could be working on a website development, the other day I could be working on a 3D animation movie.
Mhm.
I just need different people with different expertise at every level. So we always bring together people to do any certain task.
Yeah.
At any given time, we have about, it oscillates, but about 15 to 30 people working on any project at any given time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the business is good.
It's keeping me busy for sure. It's okay.
It's almost, tell me if it's wrong, is the demand higher than what you're able to deliver, or the capacity for what you can? Or yeah.
I would say that this year I definitely felt it.
Okay.
So I think next year we would probably be onboarding full-time employees. It could
Mm.
happen as such. Um, yeah, we don't know yet, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Gotta
Because
keep.
but because part of this, you are a for-profit company, right? Endosymbiont. Is
Yes.
that right? And so a lot of the folk in civic science, a lot of times people think about it's the nonprofit sort of work that is taking place, right? But in this case, you actually have a profit-making enterprise doing good, trying to do good also at the same time, right? Because at the core of what you're trying to do is to make science more accessible, right? And you have clients that are trying to do that for their own groups. What would you say? What would you give someone advice who is trying to start something, right? We were talking offline a little bit about really understanding the needs of your clients, right? And you went through this exercise. Could you just give us your kind of what the key lessons from that exercise and what others can take from that?
Do you mean from the money making part of it, or?
Yeah. So this is it's a for-profit making enterprise that you've created. But at the core of it, that you ended up understanding the needs, right? Because I think part of this is really understanding what the needs
Mhm,
were for your clientele.
mhm,
And so I just want to go back to that phase
mhm,
when you did that sort of analysis with what do my clients actually need? And is there a business that can be created around that, right? Because there are others in this space who may be trying to do the same thing. And this is my point here. And so I'm just curious, are there lessons that you can share, right? That you said, "Ooh, this is such a critical lesson
mhm.
that I think others should know about," right? Who are trying to start this, and so that way they don't make the same mistakes I made, or don't make that mistake at all, actually.
Um, I would say that one of the probably the biggest things that helped me along the journey was keeping an open mind
Mhm.
and not being too focused on what exactly do I do.
Hmm.
Because what exactly do I do has only become clear to me this year. You know,
And this is several years later, right?
like everyone who used to ask me, what do you actually do? I would be like super confused. And because at any given point in time, I was doing like multiple things and trying to really like find meaning in multiple places.
I see.
Um, so, but now I'm fairly confident about what I do because it is broad enough and I know my niche and I know my strengths. And of course, by me, I mean the company knows
Mhm.
its place in the global like global life science and biotech marketplace. But what clarified that over time was the clients were telling me what they need.
Mm.
Okay. And I was trying to find a way to make it happen for them. And so that was what, and then eventually, you realize some things you like, some things you don't like, some things you want to do, some things you're like, I don't care about it enough. And so eventually you realize like what your strengths are, and then everything gets like more clarified in that terms. Mhm.
Yeah. So it's really understanding, listening, right?
Yeah.
Along
So
the way.
a
And
little bit like the market guiding your growth a little bit,
mm,
because if there is demand in the market for a certain thing, or if there is like a market gap that you are well positioned to fill, then you find it and then you know where to be.
I
Mhm.
see. I see. So what are your projections now? If you're just focusing on your business,
Mhm.
from what you're seeing, right? You're doing the local market analysis, right? In the next year or two, as you look at the market conditions, how do you see the space for what you're doing growing?
I mean, there will always be need for new medicines. And as long as there's a need for new medicines, the life science industry is going to, keep trying to
Mm,
churn new medicines out because that's why we exist. And as long as there are scientific institutions that are creating new science that
mm,
needs to be disseminated to either the public or to other scientists,
mm.
the like the need for science communicators is going to exist. I
Mhm.
think what has definitely changed, and because surprisingly, I don't know if 7 years is long or not, but I feel like a veteran in the industry a little bit now. What I've definitely seen transform in the span of time that I have been around is that
Mhm.
a lot more people are becoming aware of the need for science communication. Like a lot more grants have places for it. After the whole pandemic, a lot more people have woken up to the need for continuous public engagement and continuous science communication channels being open between scientists and the public and within scientists themselves. So I feel like the pandemic kind of transformed the scene a little bit.
Mhm.
And also, a lot of scientists have become aware of this being a career path that can give them like some kind of fulfillment. And so I do see like a lot of newcomers in the space, and I see like a lot of people trying to make it a little bit and kind of pushing their skills towards this side. Mhm.
Yeah. Growth, and I think they're probably coming to you for advice as well, right?
Mhm.
But do you think like technologies such as AI are a threat to what you do, or is it an asset?
Uh, I would a threat. I would say no, because I mean it's definitely not there yet to be a threat.
Mhm.
If at all, people would be even more mindful of using it and come to illustrators a bit more, because by the time you get the AI to make something accurate for you, which you can like show without getting publicly shamed is gonna be like, I mean, so threat, not yet. Definitely not yet.
I see. I see.
Um, it scares me a little bit because I have also seen a lot more noise in the systems that we use. Like, for example, I used to rely on Google search. Even if you remember, like even during a webinar, I did like started my process with a Google search. But now, sometimes when you search for something, you get half AI generated and half real. And that is like a big problem because at the end of the day, it becomes harder for us to tell what is real and what is not. So, for scientific research purposes, at least, we cannot use Google anymore. And it is that is probably a bit more difficult, so these are like small places where even for like small science journalism stuff, like the other day I saw a article on brain organoids where there was literally a brain on a dish, which is completely wrong. The
Mhm.
size of the brain was inaccurate. The brain had like arms or something weird like that. These are the kind of things that scare people away. And when not used correctly, then you get into a lot of trouble. And so I would say that I would be scared for science communication a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, okay, that being said, there are ways that you can use AI tools, at least in my industry, to actually help us out a little bit. Like, say, for example, making textures. You ask the AI to make like you a nice texture and you can use it for like 3D work or whatever. Or maybe like AI can make like an entire 3D scene from a prompt. And those are like ways you can probably speed things up. I haven't been able to move past the ethical conundrum of using AI yet. Like this whole thing of the foundation being stolen art from artists who are still trying to make a living
Right.
real world. So that is like a very it's like and also like the whole thing of like if the whole world puts creatives out of a job, then will the world have any joy left? So these are like the more ethical considerations that I'm still battling with.
Yeah. Wow. Well, in this environment, I mean, we're gonna keep track of you and seeing how things develop, and we would love to have you back to share more lessons as you're going to be learning a ton, right? And things are changing so quickly with AI, and I was just recently had a conversation with someone who's doing virtual reality, and there's a whole set of other things to think about, right, in that domain, right? But we're going to leave it there, Radhika. Thank you so much for the insights, and we look forward to having you back very soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much for the invitation, and chat soon.